Alright, my dudes, issue 4 of the Babyface Adventures is upon us, and I, Freddy Savage, am here to deliver the goods. Last issue was a dark one, as our boy gained his master's degree in breaking and entering, and also lost his mind in the process as he discovered that the place that pays his bills represents renewal, as he was aided by some anonymous man from the internet. From the sounds of it, this issue takes a break from all of that and dives into the past of our beloved Edward Nashton. Nothing I love more than a prequel within a prequel. So without wasting any more time, let's get into it. So this issue opens up to a Babyface crying out for help as he is dumped on the front steps of the Gotham orphanage. The doors open and he is brought inside. There's a piece of paper with the initials EN attached and nothing else. Already, this man's a total mystery. The man who brought him inside, presumably the guy who runs the orphanage, douses a pacifier in a mystery liquid. I'm just gonna guess it's his personal bottle of booze, probably some whiskey, perhaps some Jim Beam, some Jack Daniels, who knows. Then tells his assistant to give him a name, and to let him cry out the situation as he sticks the pacifier in baby Edward's mouth, intoxicating the baby he literally just met 2 seconds ago. Already, we're establishing a healthy relationship between the two. He says that once Babyface falls asleep, to toss him in with the others. We change to Edward's point of view as he reaches out to his 2 rescuers through the crib as he fades to black, drunk as fuck, and we get the title card for the issue. The Riddler. Year 1, Chapter 4. There's no place like home. We officially open up to Edward sitting alone in a room a few years later, playing with some blocks. He is being watched over by the orphanage employees as they are discussing how a woman has left a note that matches the day that he was dropped off at the orphanage, and also how it states the correct gender of the child. The lead orphanage man explains how orphans hope to meet their parents one day and how they can't help it, as they further discuss letting Edward in on what they're talking about. The tall man in black approaches Babyface and regrets to inform him that his biological mother has passed away the night prior and that she was in care at Arkham Asylum when she passed. Edward looks up and rearranges the blocks he is playing with to spell out 13, 1, 13, 1, and a question mark. The man in black is also expressing question marks since Edward is busting out the riddles. The orphanage man tells the man in black that Edward, he doesn't speak, and that no one ever has any idea what he tries telling them. A total man of mystery already at the age of 3, a natural at his game. The man in black, with all his big brain power, figures out that the numbers represent letters of the alphabet and that Edward is spelling out mama. This guy, he's a genius. This moment is cut short as suddenly all of the other orphans run to the window. A car is out front. Someone asks if they think he's in there. Another person replies that of course he is, and that he's with his mommy and daddy, and also with his maids that take care of him. He is the luckiest kid in the world. Edward stands and clutches his blocks, curious on who it is. We come to realize that they're talking about Bruce Wayne, as the children want to be taken away with him to live in his mansion away from the slums of the orphanage. Edward approaches the window and touches it, wishing he can live the posh lifestyle that Bruce lives, and wonders why he can't live that for himself, and why his life is so different from his own, feeling trapped like there's no way out, almost like he's inside of a prison cell. We cut over to Babyface singing out to Ave Maria with the rest of the orphanage, which is a cool homage to the movie, since that song does play a big part in Edward's role and also within his theme song. It is now late, and our boy is trying to fall asleep. There's some commotion going on behind him. One of the 2 people urges for the other to call a doctor, but she says it's too late. I'm assuming one of the other orphans has passed away from the sounds of it, since from the description of this place, it is an absolute rundown dump with no quality of life whatsoever. No place for a child to grow and prosper in. Marie tells all the children lights out. It is now the middle of the night. A rat scurries along, getting up to a whole lot of ratty things. It scurries under the bed, dives into a nearby slipper, and notices Edward's hand hanging off the bed. Food. Perfect. The rat bites him, and Edward screams out in pain. He gasps and whimpers as he sees the rat scurry away. All of the other orphans tell Edward to shut the fuck up, how he needs to go back to sleep, totally ignoring the fact how he just screamed out in pain without a care in the world to his troubles. Like I said, no quality of life here whatsoever. Edward is receiving some medical attention and will receive 4 doses of a rabies shot over the next 2 weeks. They tell him to hold still as they shoot him up. He screams out in disjointed agony and pain, like any child would do in this situation. Ouch. Even I would scream out in that situation. Fuck. I hate needles, bro. It is now the next day as Edward is instructed to step forward by the lead orphanage man. There's a rat in a cage and a bucket. The man tells our boy that the best way to kill a rat is to drown it, and that this is how you get over your fear, because apparently Edward is scared of rats. Because that makes total sense. Who would have thought that if you're scared of an animal, killing it helps you get over your fears? It is the easiest and quickest solution to do so, apparently. What is this, a one-on-one class for psychopaths? Count me out, man. He urges Edward to open the cage. As he reaches up, full of hesitancy, the man grabs Edward's hand and pulls the trapdoor open for him as the rat plunges to its death in some chemical concoction. He assures Edward that there is nothing to be afraid of now. I mean, I think my fear would go from being scared of rats to being scared of this bald black shirt, white undershirt bastard who is unempathetic towards other living creatures as he is taking care of a whole bunch of small humans. He's got psychopath written all over him and is trying to corrupt our boy. I can't stand for this, but I have no choice but to sit and watch. Fuck. You can tell that it's working since Edward stares and cocks his head with a childlike curiosity, observing the rat become devoid of all life. Much like Michael Myers from the first Halloween when he stabs that guy into the wall and gives the exact same expression. Serial killer in the making, bro. This orphanage is fucked. We cut over to choir, which seems to be a couple years into the future, as Babyface sings his heart out, even though he literally never speaks. Next, we see him hitting the books like the dork and geek he is. Since he doesn't socialize with anyone, what else is he supposed to do? Within all of the knowledge given to him from the books he is constantly reading, he passes the orphanage lady a note with what appears to be the recipe for zinc sulfide. The lady is absolutely stumped on how he even knows what this is, and then proceeds to just let him mix all of the chemicals on his list of ingredients together with all of the trust that he won't blow the place up in the process. A young prodigy, the next Walter White. It is night again. Another child is getting mauled by the orphanage rats. Just a day in the life at Gotham Orphanage. The child screams for it to get off of them. Screams some more, waking Edward up in the process as he couldn't give any less of a shit as he reaches for his jar of zinc sulfide on his bedside table. I mean, if nobody gave a shit about him getting bit by a rat, it makes sense for him not to give a shit about anybody else, if I'm being real here. Instead of giving the child some help, since nobody would come to his aid when he got mauled by the local orphanage rats, he hides under the covers, shakes his bottled concoction as it lights up the dark space. He pulls out some books and tells himself, "Shh, just breathe." Little does he know that he will tell himself this literally every single day for the rest of his life. It is the next day as our boy is reading Games of Wit. Someone yells out for him to stop being such a dork and to go outside to play with the others. As Edward doesn't give a literal shit about anyone else since he is on full-on monk mode, he does anyways. The kids outside are baffled at the fact that there's a turtle in the yard and are wondering what the heck it's even doing other than minding its own business and trying not to get harassed by a bunch of dickheads. Edward does what Edward does best, creeps from afar as he watches the other kids ponder on how strong the turtle's shell is. The emo kid of the orphanage says, "Let's find out," as he tosses a rock in the air. They yell at our boy, calling him Four Eyes, telling him to stop creeping from afar and to help them abuse the poor innocent turtle who wants nothing more than just to mind its own business and not get harassed by a bunch of dickheads. Edward doesn't say anything as they ask him what's the matter and if he has learned how to speak yet. Edward still stands there silently and lets them know, no, he hasn't learned how to speak. So they grab him to pull him and rope him into their degenerate activities. The orphan emo insists for him to throw the rock at the poor innocent turtle, who is seriously at the wrong place at the wrong time, and Edward is hesitant to do so. He battles between the light and dark side of the force as he gives into the dark side and throws the rock at the turtle. He picks up the rock and throws it again to come to the realization of what he has done, and is horrified by his actions. R.I.P. to the turtle, who was just trying to mind his own business though. He was just trying to get by. May he be remembered. Prayers in the chat. Also, this is the most toxic environment for Edward to grow up in. Everybody he interacts with just wants him to partake in killing things. Like, what the fuck's going on with this place? He runs off and hides inside of a locker to process and escape from what just happened. The degenerates are asking each other where Babyface ran off to as he slumps down in the locker, shakes up his concoction, tells himself to stop crying so he doesn't give away where he is hiding, opens up his book of riddles, puzzles, and brain games, and dives right into the ones and zeros, the A's and the B's. There's nothing quite like it. Nothing takes his mind away from the struggles of the world quite like his alphabetical and numerical escapism, as he just breathes himself into a meditative state of mind, drowning everything else out. His problems disappear. Choir practice again. It is a few years ahead as he is growing like a goddamn weed, now the same height as the rest of the class. Edward creeps from the window and sees the other children doing some degenerate shit like starting fires and getting busted for doing so. Amateurs. Edward is better than that, as he is slaving away at making more concoctions in chemistry class. He takes his concoction and approaches the degenerate emo kids. The lead degenerate asks our boy what the fuck does he want, and then calls him a freak. Edward goes into the bathroom, drops the concoction, and within a few seconds comes running out empty-handed as a loud boom follows. The lead degenerate abruptly turns and urges Babyface to show him how he did that, and that's just what Babyface does. He leaves the lead degenerate with the ingredients to his concoction as he continues to creep from afar. The lead degenerate puts a drop of liquid in there as it proceeds to explode in his face. The boy cries out as he quickly figures out what happens when you fuck around, you find out. Babyface is pleased. Fuck them kids. All of the other orphans are now in attendance as the lady urges them all to listen the fuck up. The headmaster has an important message to make. Edward's curiosity peaks. The headmaster makes the announcement that Thomas Wayne is coming in for a visit within the next month to make a speech. He mentions he wants the choir to sing for him and proceeds to say that Mr. Wayne has big news to share with the world. That makes Edward an excited orphan. It is now speech day, and Thomas Wayne is at the orphanage in all of his rich glory. Thomas thanks them all for coming in today, even though he is literally inside of their house. They were already there. They had no choice but to be there. He also thanks the choir boys and lets them know that their singing chops were beautiful. All of those years of only singing Ave Maria have finally paid off. They can now rest. Edward is in the front row. Thomas lets him know how he believes in Gotham and its promise. He proceeds to say how too many have been left behind for far too long, and goes on to announce why he is there as he stands next to his boy, Bruce. Thomas Wayne announces that he is not only running for mayor, but is creating the soon-to-be infamous Gotham Renewal Fund. Edward looks up at Bruce, full of jealousy, as he wants to be in his position to have Thomas Wayne as his father, and to also be Bruce himself. He says if he wins or loses, he pledges a $1 billion donation to start a charitable endowment for public works. That's a lot. Given that this iteration of Batman is set in modern times, this would have been set in like the early 2000s. And even for then, that money is pretty unheard of. I gotta admit, Thomas got the cap. Thomas goes on to say that he wants to bypass political gridlock and get money to people and projects that need it now, like the children which are in the audience. Everything Edward wants to hear, and I assume everybody else as well, as he smiles, starting his full-on adoration for the Wayne family, which further stems into Batman himself in the future. Thomas says that renewal is about growth, planting seeds, and renewing Gotham's promise. Babyface's eyes light up since Thomas is talking like his dreams are about to come true. He's whining and dining, this boy. Headmaster Alfonso tells the kids to form a line, and form a line they do. Edward stands there eager to meet his new idol and potential new father if his delusional dreams come true. He smiles in anticipation and hopes that they will. Thomas asks Babyface's name, as Edward is about to tell him for the very first time ever that his name is Babyface Nashton, the first of many more to come. The headmaster tells Thomas that his name is Edward. He is the boy who sings like a goddamn angel, but unfortunately he doesn't speak. Thomas puts his arm on Edward's shoulder, as I bet that breathes some much needed life and energy into our boy. He asks Edward what's something that the renewal fund could do for him. He gets a little blue in the face as he is choking on his tongue, and Edward reassures him that it's okay, he can tell him. Suddenly, like a modern Christmas miracle, a gift from the universe himself, our boy speaks for the first time ever. I wish I could go to school with other kids like me. Hallelujah! The headmaster is fucking stunned, almost as if Thomas talking about renewal has almost renewed Edward since he is now finally talking. Thomas tells him that it's a good wish, a really good wish, and asks what he means by kids like him. Edward says kids who are different. Then Thomas asks how Edward is different, as in the background we see the headmaster morph into a monster, telling us that he is different in more ways than just being smart and socially illiterate. Edward wants to tell him that he's a fucking psychopath, and that the headmaster is also a psychopath who makes kids kill rats and also lets kids get killed by rats. But he bites his tongue again and tells Thomas that he's good at math. Nothing more to see here, nothing more to know. Thomas tells Edward that he thinks math helps us make sense of the world, and says maybe he will become a doctor, or maybe he will come to work at Wayne Enterprises one day. Thomas Wayne asks what else Edward likes, and he says riddles. That is when Thomas busts out a riddle for our boy. It's officially the best day ever. That's when his flashback scene from a couple issues ago comes into play. Tell me, Edward, what is never behind you and always in front of you? Edward beams with joy and answers the riddle like his life was waiting for this very moment. The future. Then, Daddy Wayne, who apparently never skips neck day, like holy fuck, his neck gains are huge, tells Edward everything he has ever wanted to hear, that he matters. No one else has ever told him this before. He has never been so sweet-talked in his life. Babyface smiles ecstatically and thinks to himself how badly he wants Thomas to bust out the adoption papers right this instant so he can become part of the family. Edward Wayne. Perfect. Initials. EW. Ew. Hell yeah. His obsession begins as it now takes over his mind. No one has ever paid him this much attention before. He is now hiding under his covers as he is accompanied by a bunch of Thomas Wayne newspaper clippings followed by a renewal application. Babyface states how badly he wants to work for Wayne Tech someday. He feels phenomenal at all the potential the future can hold. But whenever you feel that good, it's destined to come crashing down. The too good to be true effect. The lead degenerate busts on in and asks what Edward is doing under there and proceeds to take everything that he is engulfed in. Our boy screams to fight back. The The lead degenerate starts making fun of Edward and yells out that he's jerking it to Thomas Wayne. Or is it Bruce? Both of them? Edward is ashamed because yes, he was, and urges to give it back. The degenerate asks if Edward really thinks he's getting out of there, and if he thinks that he will actually be helped. He holds a lighter to all of Edward's important papers and torches it, asking if he really thinks that they want kids whose parents didn't even want them, then throws the rubble onto the ground as our boy tries to gather together the scraps. Blackness. It is now round 2 of the renewal application as our boy tries this again. He approaches Wayne Enterprises and walks on in. An employee approaches and asks if he's okay. Then Edward lets him know he has something that he needs to be delivered to Thomas Wayne. The guy tells him that he's out for the night. Then Babyface asks him if he can get this delivered to Thomas as soon as he's available. And that, it's important. Very important. A life-changing kind of thing, really. Not taking Edward seriously in the slightest, he asks if his parents know where he is and calls him a kid, making him feel small and insignificant. In that moment, he knows his attempts are useless as he accepts defeat. With all of the audacity in the world, the employee calls the cops on our boy to get escorted back to the orphanage. Edward is now in the TV room as all of the kids are surrounding the television. Edward asks what's going on. The news reporter regrets to inform everyone that last night at 10:47 p.m., Thomas and Martha Wayne were shot and killed, exactly the same time our boy arrived back at the orphanage from the police. They proceed to tell the story on how they were coming out of the Monarch Theater when they were attacked and died on sight. Their son Bruce witnessed the entire thing and is now left an orphan. That is when one of the workers comes and turns off the TV, making it fade to black, much like Edward's hopes and dreams for a better future, and also getting adopted by Thomas Wayne himself. Everything around him slowly disappears as the world feels like it's imploding in on him. Nothing else exists in that moment but shock and disappointment, knowing that nothing is ever going to change for him. We later on catch up with our boy as he is picking up his application to figure out it has been rejected. F. His sanity is slipping in and out and falling through all of the folds of his mind. No, he screams, no, he promised, somebody help me, he screams as he falls into the everlasting pit of darkness, empty of all hope, drained of all of his dreams, devoid from any sort of purpose within the future that Thomas sweet-talked into him, something he will now never forget. Blackness. He confronts the headmaster with his woes, saying how Thomas promised to help him. The headmaster lets him know the harsh truth that people say all kinds of things, especially when they plan on running for mayor, spilling the inconvenient truths of politicians, how all they do is spit lies, talk shit, and throw out empty promises to anyone and everyone, hoping to win over their hearts and their votes. The headmaster tells Edward to stop being a naive child and welcomes him to the real world since it is now time to grow up. Our sad boy sits there, sad and hopeless, as he gets lost inside his mind. Slowly, I turn off the lights, one by one, room by room, year by year, foster home after foster home. What happened in these homes, I try to block it out, but it lives in my body. So my body rejects itself like I'm a cancer. I snuff myself out into the black so the pain doesn't eat me alive. No one helps me. Somehow I stagger forward. Why? I don't know. For what have I to live for? Edward writes to the district attorney asking to be emancipated from the orphanage in a last-ditch effort to be free from the shackles of the pains of his life. Edward sees Bruce drive by as Bruce is looking just as hopeless and down as our boy Edward is, now that he has lost both of his parents. He sees him drive by and wonders if he wakes up feeling the same way every single day. Edward looks into the mirror as he faces his psychosis. He tells himself that he tries to keep his face together, to keep it from falling apart, from breaking into pieces, as the many demons of Babyface Nashton cover the entire surface area of the mirror he is looking into. While reading the paper, he comes across an article on our boy Bruce. Our boy Babyface wonders if he has someone holding his face together, or if he loves his own face. He states how Bruce is the luckiest boy in the world. He has it all, simply because he is loved by everyone. Edward lies in bed wishing he could also be seen and loved by everyone, or even just someone. He goes on wishing that someone would just notice him and take him away from the dark and bleak lifestyle that orphanage life brings to him and all of the other orphans. Bruce Wayne, the orphan. Finally, the day has come. The day is here for Edward to finally leave the hellhole he was born into. The headmaster wishes him good luck out there in the real world as his psychosis is still hanging around from this moment on for the rest of his life. Edward is now at college, and instead of giving into the degenerate lifestyle that college life promotes and brings, our boy completed the entire semester's workbook within the first week. The first night, actually. His professor knows that he is way too good for college and tells him to go apply for the job that is written on the piece of paper that he hands over to Edward, saying that he will try to put in a good word for him. It leads him to KTMJ. Damn, who would have thought that that place would have been his first and only job he's ever had? As he approaches KTMJ, he is listening to his podcast. Imagine someone you trust or love, someone who feels sturdy to you. Ask them to give you what you need. It's Hamza. He lets Edward know how to grab life by the balls and all of the 101 ways on how to go from a Jeffrey to an Adonis, and 6 easy steps of self-improvement. He just finished watching How to Reject Degeneracy and Embrace God to get him through college in only one day, and now he is watching his video on how to make his pee-pee bigger so he can royally fuck the workforce and the ass of so he can proceed to make that shit his official bitch. The world is now his. He fights off and walks away from his inner demons.
Run. Run as fast as you can. They'll never take you, you freak.
With his newfound Adonis energy, he tells his inner Jeffrey he has to go to work now as he leaves all of his doubts and darkness literally on the front steps. They scream for Edward to not leave him there and that he's scared of the dark. Edward walks in on what he thinks is to be a bright future, totally unaware of what is about to unfold in the near future. He has now entered monk mode yet again to dedicate all of his time and energy towards his purpose in life, the numbers. Shh, just breathe, as his darkness is now behind him, for now. If only I knew then what I know now, as we end the issue on Edward's inner darkness sitting there lonely in the dark with his zinc sulfide light and blocks that spell out "Help me." To be continued. Wow, man, yet again, another solid issue. I really enjoyed a full-on deep dive into Edward's past this time around. It was a really nice way to change things up as we get to further understand Babyface's past, how he came to be an orphan, how his mom was a patient in Arkham, how he was a mute who got coerced into killing more than one animal from the people around him, the way how Thomas Wayne sweet-talked the fuck out of him, got him to speak for the very first time, and then to have all of his dreams get totally crushed, and also how he came to get his job at KTMJ. I swear every issue turns out to be my favorite one yet. They just keep getting better and better. We have 2 issues left, and I feel like the story will come back swinging and go out with a massive bang. This entire series has been structured so well so far. Paul Dano and Stefan Subrick better get all of their praises sung for this series once it's complete. I don't think I've read any comic run so far that has been as absolutely solid as this one, and one that has had me so invested inside the story. The fact they can take a villain such as the Riddler and turn him into the most sympathetic anti-hero is beyond me, man. You come to feel for him and his struggles so much, and it's painful to know where he ends up because we know he can do so much better than how he turned out. His potential was limitless. He literally had the world in the palm of his hand. But can we really blame him how he turned out though? The world completely ate him up and spat him out time and time again right from the day he was born. There's 2 issues left, and I know we're in for an absolutely wild ride now that we understand Edward that much deeper. Second last issue comes out June 27th, and I seriously can't wait to finish this series for you guys. We've already come so far, and I thank all of you for sticking around. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this video. My name is Freddy Savage, bringing you The Riddler, Year 1, Issue 4, and I'll see you when Issue 5 comes around. Much like Edward, time for me to go back into monk mode. Peace.